Hello, welcome to Bloody Good. My name is Montgomery and I've been a fan of horror my whole life.
My name is Emily and I've spent the last few years dipping my toes into the genre.
And this is Old versus New, where we take a look at the original and remake of a classic horror film.
And we decide what's best using our P.H.L.E.G.M Vibes model. This includes plot,
Horror,
location,
ensemble,
gore,
music,
and most importantly,
vibes.
For each category, we'll both be giving each film a score out of 5, and we'll total it all up at the end and decide which is the best version.
Today, we take a look at two films that follow a group of friends who take a trip to a mysterious cabin in the middle of the woods. All is not fine, however. After discovering an ancient book bound in flesh, the group becomes possessed and one by one slowly lose themselves, and it's up to our lone hero to save the day. Today we're looking at The Evil Dead.
It is through recitation of these passages that the demons are given license to possess the living.
Now, while both films share a group of friends visiting an isolated cabin in the woods, their reason for going there couldn't be more different. Now, whilst in the original it's simply a group of college chums looking for a mountain getaway and deciding to spend their night in a cheap cabin, the remake has a much more serious topic. Mia is a drug user who is currently experiencing addiction and has been taken up to the cabin by her friends and family to seek treatment and to get clean. I was really shocked rewatching this film. Truth be told, I haven't seen Evil Dead in a number of years, but watching it again with Emily, I was shocked at how well paced it is. The film goes by incredibly quickly and gives us a bit of time to breathe with the characters, and then when the action starts, it keeps ramping up until the very end. I also love just how evil the demons are in this. The sadistic pleasure they get out of torturing their victims. It's not just enough that they stab, maim and try and kill you, but they will laugh at you whilst doing it and switch back into a human form just to fuck with you. It's great. I love the Deadites as characters. They're one of my favourite villains. And also the fact that they can't be killed unless they are fully dismembered is brutal and horrifying, and yeah, just makes this film amazing. The remake opens with a fairly horrific scene of a deadite being burned alive. Now, I understand why the movie does this, and it's quite typical for modern horror films to open up with an intense scene to sort of grab the audience's attention from the start and maybe provide some early scares. However, I think this sort of robs the film of what I really liked about the remake, which was this creepy feeling of being watched initially, a sort of unnerving paranoia. I think the remake has this thing where it opens up with quite high octane action and gives us very little time to sort of sit and appreciate our characters. There's no real dinner scene or a group coming together. In fact, I struggle to recall any scene where the entire group is just in a room talking with one another. We get these isolated moments of each character, but very few group activities are shown in the film. I also just think some of the characters in this film are just dumb. I mean, from the start of the film, they realise their cabin has been broken into and decide, might as well just go in anyways, which, crazy. Later on, they find out the basement has a blood stain moving towards it. They go into the basement and find it is strung up with dead cats. Once again, decide, yeah, you know what, this is still a great place to reform a drug addict. So for plot, I'm going to be giving the original a 5 and the remake a 2.
So I really like the plot of this original film. I think the cabin in the woods story seems pretty overdone nowadays, but this was the first one, so it definitely gets credit for that. It just feels really original, and the characters are interesting, and they all kind of have something to do, and they serve a purpose in the plot. So I really like this. Now for the remake, I think there was a really interesting plot somewhere in there, and it just got really lost along the way. As Monty said, the motivation is different for the group coming to the cabin in the remake. It's not just a couple of friends hanging out for the weekend. They're there to help Mia because she's an addict. And I think that would have been a really interesting story had they carried that on and made that quite a central part of the plot. I was convinced the first half an hour or so of this film was just going to be her losing her mind, seeing these things around, being haunted, being possessed, and the rest of them just going, oh, she's just having withdrawal symptoms, just leave her. And she was going to get worse and worse and worse until it was undeniable that something was really, really wrong. But they just abandoned ship on that idea really quickly. She goes out and she's in the rain and she sees the woman off in the background, and then it's all balls to the wall horror from there onwards, and it just doesn't really stop. And I think that was what was missing for me in the plot here. I really would have liked a slower burn to start with. It just got straight into it, and I think that lost it for me. So for the plot, I'm giving the original 5 and the remake 3.
Now, whilst I hadn't seen Evil Dead 1 in a while, I'd rewatched Evil Dead 2 so many times. I love that film. It's one of my favourite horror films of all time. And I kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I sort of remember it being more of a horror comedy, the original, that is. Rewatching it, I forgot how genuinely scary a lot of the moments are in this film. Whether it's the opening with the bench knocking against the cabin, which just immediately unsettles you a little bit, the possession reveal with the card game, or just the makeup in general and how they're acting when they are possessed. In fact, I think the Deadites are so creepy in this movie. The way they're sat, smiling, giggling, they're really fucking toying with Ash and trying to like make him go crazy more than kill him, and it's really effective and incredibly unsettling. Overall, I just think this film is incredibly creepy and horrific and amazing. And fuck that basement door shot particularly. I hated that. That really creeped me out when I first saw this when I was super young, and kind of still does now. So yeah, don't like that. Now for the remake, sort of off the bat, I'm not a huge fan of the redesign of the Deadites. It's a similar thing I have with when they remade George A. Romero movies with the zombies, where by trying to make them look so much more scary, they sort of lose something. There's something about the original Deadite design to the new one where it just feels a bit over-designed, a bit dark. Overall, the remake does have good moments, but it feels like a film really trying to be a horror movie. And when something's really trying to be scary, I find it can sometimes work in reverse. So, for horror, I'm giving the original a 5 and remake a 3.
In terms of horror, the original is really, really good. Of all the kind of originals and remakes we've looked at so far, I think this is definitely up there in terms of the horror. I really like the way in which the characters are possessed and the way you can see it physically manifesting on their body. I think when she is drawing with her hand and you see the hand discoloring and changing, I think it's a really cool effect. Now there is the scene out in the forest where all of the vines and the trees and the branches do that, and I don't like that, and that definitely amps the horror for me. And I do have to say it feels like quite a common thread among horror films, but it does feel like the women do get the worst end of stuff. It's horrific to watch and I didn't enjoy watching it, so obviously that means the horror is pretty good. Now in terms of the remake, for me the horror felt quite predictable. Like you put a dog on screen in the first few minutes and my mind goes straight, oh, they're gonna kill this dog. No question about it. And they do, and I hate that. And I did ask Monty to tell me when that was all over, because I closed my eyes and I didn't want to see that because I don't really like that type of horror personally. I think overall the film is quite creepy and quite horrific, but I don't know, there was just something about it for me that didn't really scare me that much. I'm quite an easy person to jump scare, and there were attempts at jump scares, but nothing actually really made me jump, and I don't really know why, but it just wasn't really hitting those marks for me. And in terms of the kind of tree foresty scene, again, it was getting to a point I was like, oh, they're going to do it again. And I thought, oh, progressive, they haven't done that part of the scene. She's still getting torn up and kind of held, but they didn't go that far. And then, you know, that lasted all of 20 seconds. And I went, oh no, they went there. Different this time, but they still went there, unfortunately. I think there's something to be said about this film just trying really hard to be scary and just falling a bit flat. I'm an easy person to scare, and there just wasn't that much going on in this film that had me going, oh, like all of those reactions are very normal reactions for me. Even watching normal films, if they've got something a little bit horrific going on, I'm quite squirmy and ugh. But this film didn't really do much for me. I don't really know why, but the horror just wasn't really hitting that well for me. So for horror, I'm giving the original 5 and the remake 3.
And for locations, this cabin is iconic. I mean, it basically made the whole genre. There's a reason there is a movie called The Cabin in the Woods. I just truly love how stylized this film really feels, with the like ridiculous amount of fog laying on the sort of forest floor, the sort of random spotlights outside for no good reason when Ash is dragging bodies out, and it gives it such like a unique style and charm. I think it's great. Now the remake does a great job at recreating the iconic cabin. Sadly, the original was burnt down by vandals, so it just makes what they've done here all the more impressive. Now that being said, I do think they dropped the ball a little bit. I think it's really interesting bringing in a well. I think that was great, but sort of underused. They do come back to it, but not in a way that really makes it that unique, in my opinion. And additionally, I think the basement is much worse. I think with all of the locations in the remake, there's an emphasis to make them feel more creepy, which sort of has the opposite effect. I'm more scared of something mundane looking that has creepy properties frosted upon it, not like a cabin that already looks weird that's filled with kitten skeletons. So for location, I'm giving the remake a 5 and the original a 3.
So in terms of location for the original, I really like the setting. I think the cabin itself looks really cool. I don't think it's overly scary or horrific to look at, but in the environment in those woods, it looks creepy, but it's not overly so. A particular set piece I did really like was the destroyed bridge, and the way it collapsed into the river, it looked like a hand kind of grasping out of the ground, and I thought that was a really cool kind of visual imagery that looked really imposing and threatening. In terms of the remake, I think the cabin is trying too hard to be scary. As soon as the cabin comes onto screen, I thought, that looks really scary, but too scary almost, to the point where I was like, if that was me going there, I would look at that and just turn straight back around and drive away, because that's obviously wrong. There's something going on there that's not right. Whereas the original kind of looks quite cozy to me. I also thought it was a bit of a cop-out to just have the bridge be flooded at the end instead of broken. But that kind of lost it a bit for me. I did boo at the screen when I saw that, because I thought it was funny. So for location, I'm giving the original 5 and the remake 3.
Promise me you'll stay with me until the end.
I'm not going anywhere.
Cross your heart.
I love Bruce Cambell. I love him in everything he does. I loved him in Burn Notice. I love him in Evil Dead. I love him in Cards 2. He's amazing. He can do no wrong. And in this film, it just shows why he's going to be a movie star. He is so much more interesting than all the other actors on screen, no offense to them. But Bruce Cambell is just amazing and has this charisma about him that makes him a great leading man. Additionally, I like how he's a kind of reluctant leading man, which is again just a great trope, which I don't think is seen enough. You know, he gets the shit beaten out of him constantly. He's a bit of a pussy, which fair enough, it's a wild situation to be in. I also think Ash just sort of slowly crashing out is just great. Like the point where he puts his hands through the mirror and just screams. Yeah, man, valid. Look, you've had to like cut up your girlfriend, sister, best mate. Like the most reasonable crash out in horror movie history, in my humble opinion. Which, yeah, I just think is great. I think the rest of the characters are fine, they're serviceable, they sort of do their jobs, but I'll be honest, if I wasn't writing this video, I probably wouldn't remember their names, and if you asked me to recount them right now in this very second, I would struggle not looking at the script. Sadly, the remake isn't very good, in my opinion, when it comes to the ensemble. I mean, the actress who plays Mia is amazing and wonderful and has some beautifully crazy eyes. Everyone else, on the other hand, I find is a bit bland, which I kind of put down a bit to the script. As mentioned, plot, the film gets started quite quickly and doesn't give us a moment to bond with our characters. For the ensemble, I'm going to be giving the original a 5 and the remake a 1.
So in terms of the original for ensemble, Ash is really going to be most of what I talk about here, because he is just immediately charming. You know, damn you, Bruce Cambell, you're too charming, and it's not fair. I just like that Ash is a bit of a pussy at some points. Like there's a scene where he just kind of slinks away while he's holding the axe. He doesn't do anything with it. He just kind of stands there with it and he looks a bit scared. And I like that he's our main character. He's our hero of the film. But at one point he's just kind of shying away with an axe. And I also like that he just gets fucked up throughout the whole film. He's getting thrown into stuff. He has the same shelving unit fall on him twice and he's pinned under it. I don't love the other characters in the film. I think Scotty especially is quite annoying to me. But on a whole, I think the rest of the ensemble is a bit weak, and I'm just kind of always waiting for Ash to do something funny again. Now for the remake, in terms of the ensemble, I think the actress who plays Mia is really good, but I think the character is still unlikable, as are the rest of the ensemble. I don't think any of them are particularly interesting or likable. And I don't want to sound mean, and this is coming from someone who likes Supernatural, but it kind of feels like a Supernatural episode or something else on the CW. It kind of gives me those vibes in terms of acting. I particularly take issue with Eric, and I apologize to this actor, but you look like Jared Leto in this film to me, and that means I hate you, because I hate Jared Leto. So every time Eric was on screen, I had Jared Leto in the back of my brain, and that really made me dislike him. And I think something particularly that bugged me in this film was that everything was very tell, not show. If we'd have had that time at the start of the film, like I said earlier, I was expecting a good 30 minutes of getting to know these characters. We didn't get that. So all of the dialogue is very explicitly like, oh, this is my sister, this is my girlfriend, she's my friend. I'm like, if we just had longer with the characters to start with, if we'd had a bit like the original where they have a sit down and they have a dinner or they have some drinks, just getting to know them a little bit better, I think would have made the rest of the film a lot more interesting. But they didn't do that, so I don't really care about any of these characters at the end of the day. So for Ensemble, I'm giving the original 4 and the remake 2.
Now, for the original, I love the gore in this. I think good horror movie gore should be tactile, visceral, and feel real. And I think especially when it's done practical, it has this sort of era of like a magic trick almost, where you're trying to figure out how they did it, which makes it even more fun. There's also just some brutal pieces of gore in this. I think the pencil stab in the ankle just genuinely makes me squirm out of my seat so much. It's amazing, as well as just all of the gore and makeup effects for the Deadites. They look amazing and iconic, and they really have this original look to them that I think the remake kind of misses. Another bit I just want to highlight is I hate the hand that's chewed off by one of the Deadites. It's just horrible and horrific, and even when you see them cut up, it just looks amazing. And yeah, I love it. I love it so much. It's such a good film. It's such good gore. Now, the remake did try and utilize as many practical effects as possible, but with the opening, we do see a burning body with some CGI, and it sort of left a bad taste in my mouth to start with. I think a franchise that is so popular for its practical gore effects, opening with CGI gore just doesn't sit well with me personally. Now, that being said, the rest of the gore in this film is fantastic. I've said it before, but if you can get like an audible reaction out of me when it comes to gore, where I've sort of seen a decent amount, yeah, that's really good. You know, there's so many amazing scenes. The nail gun scene, the bit where the lady cuts her own arm off and we see it as it sort of flops down to the floor. Oh, gross, but amazing. Now, my issue with this film is it sort of veers into torture porn category, similar to the likes of Hostel, Saw, and some of the later entries to the Wrong Turn franchise, and that's not really my bag. I don't love that, it's not my cup of tea. The sort of way I explain it is like, a lot of horror movies focus on the stab, and the stab's fun, the stab's cool. This movie and movies like that focus on, after the stab, actually pulling the knife out, and there are so many scenes which are just close-ups of characters wincing in pain, pulling sharp objects outside of their body, and I don't love that. That's not fun to me. That's like, ooh, like, it's a different vibe, which is fine, but I just think for a remake of Evil Dead, it doesn't really suit it as much. For a franchise where, you know, you kind of cheer when someone cuts off their own hand in later films, I feel like it doesn't really suit this kind of franchise, but that's just my humble opinion. I do want to highlight certain moments though. The blood rain at the end is amazing and iconic, and I really appreciate the amount of limb loss we get in this film, where it doesn't pull away at the last second or try and hide it. It's pretty much in your face with it, which is a nice change of pace for horror films. I quite like that. For gore, I'm going to be giving the original a 5 and the remake a 5 as well.
In terms of gore for the original, there is so much to talk about, and so much of it was so disgusting to me. And I spent a lot of the film kind of recoiling and going like, oh, that's disgusting, because the effects were really strong. And everything was really bloody and disgusting. And there were so many bits like, ugh, that just had me really feeling uncomfortable. I think there's something to be said about unknown fluids in this film. Quite a few of the deaths involve lots of fluids coming out of bodies, and they're unknown fluids, and I don't like that. I'd rather know what the stuff is, but I don't know what it is, and it upsets me. One particular bit that really horrified me was the thumbs in Scott's eye. I had to look away. I really don't like any eye stuff. This is a common thing for me across any media. Anything about like people touching eyes, ugh, disgusting to me. So that scene, ugh, gross. In terms of the remake for me, for gore, I think there was a lot going on, but it just didn't hit me the way that I think other instances of gore does, and especially the original. Now, an issue I do have with this film, and I do want to express it clearly here, is that they don't know how to deal with injuries. So many people are stabbed with knives or nail guns or all sorts of stuff, and they just pull that right back out and let all the blood come out. It's like, it's blood loss 101. If you're stabbed, don't take it out. Go to the hospital, with it still in you, don't take it out. Just a lot of gross stuff going on here, but not the kind of gross stuff that actually resonated with me. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone but me. There was definitely some gore going on, but it just didn't actually affect me the way that something like the original did. So for Gore, I'm giving the original a full 5, I'm giving the remake a 3.
Now, for sort of the music and sound design of the original, I think it's got a great score that has like a really unique vibe and really just adds to the sort of ambiance and sense of the film. Along with when they first approach the cabin and there's just that little bench knocking into the wall, really creepy, really atmospheric. As well as I love like the clicks on the chains in the tool shed. Like there's some really tasty sound design in this that just goes, oh yeah, no, that's nice. So I really like that. Now for the remake, I really love the opening score. I think it's really well done, and that shot of the woods kind of almost reminds me of The Shining, which I think is really cool. However, I feel like the film is sort of overscored to a degree. Maybe it's just because I've been watching a lot of older horror movies, but they use a lot more silence, which I appreciate, whilst in the newer film, it just feels like every scene has a score going, which kind of takes me out of it, to be honest. And there was also a strange choice, but almost every song had a sort of foghorn or like tornado siren-esque thing, which was really distracting and really took me out of it. It was kind of cool for one or two, but it felt like every single piece of sort of music in this film had that in it, so yeah, a bit strange in that. For music, I'm giving the original a 3 and the remake a 2.
In terms of the original for music and sound design, I really like it. There's some kind of wacky 80s synth music going on at points, and I really like that. It's a bit silly, but the film is a bit silly at points too, so I think it kind of works. There's some really cool voice effects going on throughout the film as well, and I think it really helps sell the possession of the characters when they've got these really weird modified voices. I think it sounds really cool. I also really like the weird kind of ragtime music that plays over the end credits, and I know I said in previous videos about Romero's films that the weird kind of jaunty music at the end takes me out of it, but for some reason it didn't take me out of this film. I think because there was a bit of a fun vibe going on anyway, it kind of helped and it added to that in a sense. In terms of the remake for the music and sound design, there was a soundtrack there, and it was quite frenetic. At points it sounded really scary and creepy, and at points it was really bordering on like Danny Elfman music. There were certain scenes where I was like, this really sounds like Beetlejuice, or this really sounds like The Nightmare Before Christmas. And that kind of gave me a weird genre kind of bending thing of like, oh, this feels too silly. Where this film had a much more serious take than the original, I think having that jaunty music kind of threw me off a bit more, like the Romero films do. It just didn't feel quite in place, personally. I will say though, the sound that kind of accompanied the camera work as it moved through the forest was really cool and quite scary, so I did appreciate that. So for music, I'm giving the original 4 and the remake a 3.
Now, I know I already said this in our sort of comparison of The Thing, but this is another movie that was just made for the vibe scale. It's amazing, it's beautiful, it's great, I love everything about it. I feel like this film basically created its own subgenre when it comes to its vibe. I love the amount of different practical effects solutions that are in this film that they come up with to use. I love the car, the fashion, the styling. There are so many fun, creative decisions made in this film that just make it so unique. The blood filling up the light bulb or running down the screen, which was a reference to one of their early investors who essentially said, no matter what happens, boys, don't stop the blood running on the screen. I truly love this movie. I think it's amazing. I think it's a testament to film and cinema. I think it's a testament to the horror genre as a whole, and I think it's just a testament to filmmaking and working within limited budgets, single locations, actors who keep dropping out and having to find ways to fill in for them. There's a real production diary that was kept during the making of this film, and it was a slogfest to get this film done. So many people filled in for the deadlines because the original actors left to move on to other projects. Now, I don't want to go down on this film too badly. I did enjoy this film. It disappointed me a little bit, but it's still got some amazing stylized moments, some of the best gore I've seen in a horror film, and some really creative ideas such as burying the dead body and bringing it back up and using a car battery as a defibrillator. I do think this film is just a really solid addition to this franchise. I don't think it really comes close to the original, but I don't think it was necessarily trying to. This was sort of trying to introduce the Deadites to a new audience, which, I think it did a reasonably good job at that. So for Vibes, I'm giving the original a 5, and Remake is getting a 2.
In terms of the original for Vibes, I really like it. I think it was a really, really good film, and it kind of captivated me from beginning to end. And I was just always looking around the screen for what was going on and if there was anything I could spot, and I just really liked it overall. There were some really cool lighting choices and some really cool camera shots. I really like the kind of really stark kind of turned angles on the camera at certain points. There was one particular shot I do want to highlight, just because I don't know why, I just really liked it, but it was when the camera was tracking Ash coming up the basement stairs, and the steps are blacking out the camera as it goes up. And I don't know why, but it just really stuck with me. That was a visual that has just remained with me since watching it. I just thought it was really cool. But overall, the vibes of this film were really fun. It was a creepy film, but it was fun at points as well. And I like that balance. I think it played it really well. And all the performances, well, mostly Bruce Campbell's performance, really stuck out and really made the film what it is. And I think that's why the franchise has grown so popular. I think the longevity of the franchise really lives and dies on Bruce Campbell, because he's just a really fun actor and he gives a really great performance in this film. And I'm sure once I get around to all the other ones, I will still feel the same about that too. Now for the remake, I don't think it does anything much better than the original, apart from maybe the opening scene with the car going through all the roads in the woods. I think that was a really cool shot. But otherwise, there wasn't much going in terms of vibes for me. It just felt like a bog standard horror film, that they were really trying hard to be scary. It just kind of fell flat for me. I think the writing was a bit weak. I think there was quite abrupt dialogue, and as I said in the ensemble section, there was just very tell not show stuff going on, and it felt like I wasn't trusted as the audience to be able to pick up on context clues myself. It felt like they feel I'm stupid, so they had to feed me all the information so I understood what was going on. And I don't know, it just made me feel a bit stupid, because I don't know, you can't trust me to understand that these two characters are siblings if you just gave me 5 more minutes with them acting normally instead of giving me really crap dialogue. I don't know, it just kind of fell flat for me. So for vibes, I'm giving the original a full 5, and I'm giving the remake a 2.
So we've given you our opinions and our scores. Now it's time to add them all up and find out definitively what film is best. Let's go find out, shall we? And there we have it. The original clearing it with 66, and the remake modestly there at 37. Now, I think both films are still pretty great, and I recommend you check them both out, truthfully.
Thanks so much for taking the time to watch the video. It really means a lot to us that you're here, and if you like what you saw, check out some other other videos and maybe subscribe. We're a little channel, we're growing, and there's plenty of room for you to come and join us here, so stick around.